All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to tackle one of the biggest, maybe the biggest questions out there right now. What's the deal with automation and AI, and what does it mean for all of our jobs?
I mean, it's the question, right? The one that's probably in the back of your mind. Is a robot, is an AI gonna take my job? And look, it's a totally fair question. It causes a lot of anxiety. And when you see how fast this stuff is moving, yeah, it's easy to see why people are worried. But here's the thing. The real story, when you dig into it, is way more complex and honestly a lot more interesting than just those scary headlines. The actual data tells a totally different story, a really surprising one. And it all comes down to this tug of war between two huge economic forces.
So, to really wrap our heads around what's happening, we've got to understand this central conflict, this tale of two effects that automation creates in the job market. And that brings us to a really important idea that economists use called the task model. And it's pretty simple, actually. It says, hey, stop thinking about a job as this one big thing that's either safe or not. Instead, think of your job as just a collection of different tasks. And that right there is the key. Because, yeah, some of those tasks can be automated, but a whole bunch of them? Nope, not a chance.
And this is where you see those two effects in action. On one side of the coin, you've got the displacement effect. This is the scary one, right? The one we all think about, where machines come in and take over tasks that people used to do. But, and this is a huge but, on the other side, you've got this super powerful productivity effect. See, when automation makes a company more efficient, it can lower prices, boost demand for their products, and get this, it actually ends up creating brand new tasks and even entirely new kinds of jobs for humans.
So, the million-dollar question is, which one is winning? Displacement or productivity? Well, the data is finally starting to give us an answer. And it is pointing to something pretty surprising. A job boom. And it's happening in the very industries we were told to be most afraid of. And the evidence for this is, well, it's pretty powerful. Take a look at this. A huge study by PwC found that the industries that are most exposed to AI, they aren't just getting by, they're seeing 3 times the productivity growth. They're not just surviving, they're actually leading the pack. And that huge jump in productivity, it's translating directly into bigger paychecks. On average, if you have AI skills, you're earning a whopping 56% more. That's a massive premium. The market couldn't be clearer. It's screaming for people who know how to work with these new tools, not against them. Okay, and this chart just spells it out. Look over on the left, industries with the least exposure to AI, their wages grew about 7.9%. Now look all the way to the right. The industries with the most exposure, their wages grew 16.7%. That's more than double. So the big takeaway here, what the data is showing us so far, is that more AI seems to mean higher wages, not fewer jobs. And this really gets to the heart of it. It's about a total mindset shift. This data from McKinsey is great because it shows how much automation potential there is in different fields. But here's the critical part. High potential for automation isn't the same thing as high job loss. What it really means is high potential for change. Our jobs aren't just disappearing. They're being rewritten, redesigned right under our feet. So what does that lead to? Well, it's kicking off what you could call the great skills reshuffle. I mean, the very definition of what makes a skill valuable is changing, like right now, as we speak. It's actually kind of cool. You can see how our thinking on this has evolved just by looking at the major studies. You had that famous Frey and Osborne study back in 2013 that, let's be honest, scared everybody half to death. But then, as we got more data, newer reports from places like McKinsey and the World Economic Forum started painting a different picture. They shifted the focus and said, wait, it's about tasks, not jobs. And they started projecting that this whole thing would actually create more new roles than it would get rid of. But, and this is really important, this change isn't easy for everybody. It's not a perfectly smooth ride. As the economist David Autor points out here, what we're seeing is a polarization of the job market. Think of it like this. Those routine, middle-skill jobs are getting squeezed. They're being automated away. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of growth at the very top for creative, complex jobs, and also at the bottom for in-person service jobs that you just can't automate. And, as we sit here talking about skills and adapting, we have to take a step back and remember that even having this conversation is a privilege. This data from the OECD is a pretty stark reality check. For almost 3 billion people who are still offline, the big challenge isn't adapting to AI. It's just getting access to the internet in the first place. This digital divide is real, and it means all these opportunities we're talking about, they're not being spread around evenly at all. So, where do we go from here? Well, it seems pretty clear that the future isn't some epic battle, humans versus machines. The winning playbook, whether you're a person or a whole company, is going to be human plus machine.
So what does that actually look like in the real world? Let's take Amina, the analyst. The AI isn't trying to take her job. It's her superpowered assistant doing all the tedious research so she can focus on the big picture strategy. Or think about John in customer support. An AI can handle all the simple, repetitive questions, which frees him up to become a specialized problem solver for the really tough cases where you need a human touch. In both of these stories, the tech is making them better at their jobs, more valuable.
And it's not just a nice idea. The people in charge are getting it too. This survey data is pretty mind-blowing, actually. 91% of employers, that's almost everyone, they see automation not as some threat they have to deal with, but as a huge opportunity they can grab. They're all in on this collaborative future. Okay, so what can you do? What's the game plan for navigating all this? It really boils down to 3 key things. First, you've got to become a lifelong learner. That's not just a buzzword anymore. Second, lean into the skills that make you human, the stuff machines are bad at, like creativity, real problem solving, and empathy. And third, you have to stay flexible. You have to be ready to adapt, because in the world we're heading into, being able to pivot is going to be your superpower. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. The question isn't, will automation change my job? That's a done deal. It will. The real question, the one we each have to answer for ourselves, is how will I change with it?